EQ can be one of the handiest tools that we have when dialing in a guitar tone, but if we don't know what we're doing with it, we can actually cause more harm than good. Today I'm going to show you my number one EQ trick that I use across the board, regardless of the guitar modeling system I'm using, whether I'm using Helix, Kemper, Cortex, ToneX. This is a trick that can help you to dial in and perfect your tone in a very intuitive, quick fashion to speed up your workflow. Let's get to it. All right, to demonstrate the topic of today's video, we're going to be using this little instance of iZotope's Neutron 4 equalizer, and I have it set up to have two EQ bands. So just to get started, let's just go through the different styles of EQ we can have. We can have these bell curves or this parametric style EQ, which is the type of EQ a lot of people are going to be used to, which allows us to pinpoint a frequency somewhere in the frequency spectrum, adjust kind of the bandwidth or the Q of that to see how many different frequencies it's going to affect, and then boost or cut. Now, the problem with this type of EQ is we really kind of have to know what we're doing, what we're looking for very specifically, or else we could boost and cut things that may do more harm than good to our sound. But that seems to be the EQ that a lot of people go to. We also have graphic equalizers, which are not part of this Neutron plugin, but we will see that on some guitar amps, and that is not the topic of today's video either. We also have things like high and low pass, which are things that guitar players will be quite familiar with, which will allow us to come in here and maybe cut all the frequencies off above or below a certain set frequency. But that also is not the type of EQ I am talking about today. What I am talking about is the low and high shelf EQ. And now what a low and high shelf EQ does, and I'm going to set both of these at 650 Hertz, which is the strange thing. And a lot of people will look at me kind of funny thinking, why are you setting both at the exact same spot? Well, this is kind of a sweet spot that I've found for dialing in guitar tones, and it works really, really well. So let me show you what this does. So if we have this set to 650 Hertz, if I take this high shelf and boost it, you'll notice it's creating kind of what looks like a shelf. And this is going to boost all the frequencies above this point here equally across the board, much like the low shelf EQ is going to boost or cut all the frequencies in this shelf formation. So why 650 Hertz? Well, it's kind of interesting that what I've found is that the frequencies below 650 encompass some frequency areas that can kind of get a little bit muddy on guitar and maybe take up too much bottom end. And this gives us a very quick way of controlling that, or if not, adding fullness to an otherwise thinner sound. The frequencies above 650 are very nice in that we fill in some of the 700 to 900 Hertz, which I actually kind of like on guitars. It gives a nice, almost warmth to it that I really enjoy, which counteracts maybe some of the harshness in the upper end. Now, again, when we're going to make these adjustments, I'm talking pretty subtle adjustments, though a lot of times I'm going a dB, maybe 2 dB of adjustments, and going in both directions like this can really work wonders on our tone. Let's take a look at this more modeler specific now. We'll go through the different modelers. We'll be talking Helix, ToneX, Cortex, and Kemper today, and I'll show you how I implement this on each of those units. So starting off here with the Helix, what I have is just a very basic little preset here. I have a little dynamic ambience here just to add a little bit of ambience to the sound so it's not so bone dry. I have a Brit 2203 with a 412 greenback 25 and 121 ribbon. Now I'm going to shut this little block off. This is my low and high shelf EQ. This is what this sounds like with no other EQ, just this amp and mic as we have it set. Now, we might like what we hear there, or we might want to make some adjustments to that. So let's go to our low and high shelf EQ. You'll notice here I have my low and high frequencies both set to 650 Hertz. Now, if I just zero those off, let's bring that here. It's doing nothing at all right now. Now, because I'm playing a telly, you might listen to this tone and go, it's a little bit abrasive on the high end. So I'm going to take the high frequency where some of those abrasive tones might live, and I'm going to pull that back a couple dB. Let's just start with that. See what it already did is it softened and warmed that tone up a little bit. Got some of that high-end harshness. Now it's gone. Now maybe I don't want to take that much out. Let's go here, and then we'll come in on the frequencies below and give those a little gentle boost. Fill it out a bit. here's some harshness there. Now I'm on the middle position. Let's go to the bridge position. You can see that really kind of warmed things up a little bit. Now we could also have the opposite, where we had a tone that was too warm or too full, and we could work in the opposite manner by boosting the highs and cutting the lows. Let's move on over to ToneX and see how we can work with this on that platform. All right, so here I am over on ToneX, and I'm featuring one of my new captures that I recently released, which is the Princess Rex Ultimate, and this is based off of a really killer Fender 65 Princeton reverb in a beautiful lacquered tweed that features an Eminence Cannabis Rex 12 speaker in it. So basically, here's this tone without any EQ modifications if we come up here to the Advanced tab. Beautiful, beautiful tone, really loving it. Now, a lot of folks don't realize that the bass and the treble control on ToneX advanced EQ settings are shelf EQs. Now, the problem on this one is that I like to set these at 650 hertz. The highest that the bass frequency will go is 600, and the lowest the treble frequency will go is 1000. So not ideal, not my favorite implementation. I would love them both to go to the 650 level, but it's still quite useful. And you'll see here again, let's say I go to my neck pickup. Now I like that fullness, but let's say we want to dial that back a bit. I can simply come in here, pull back on this bass shelf EQ, and you'll kind of hear that bass get cleaned up a bit. Could be much more dramatic if I wanted. You'll hear as soon as I pop that back in, quite a difference. Or maybe I want a little more sparkle to this, and I come up to the high shelf treble EQ. Go to extremes here. So you can see how powerful a feature this can be if we just go in here just nice and subtly, mess around with this. Can give us something that's much more mix ready. So don't overlook the bass and treble high and low shelf EQs on ToneX. Now heading over to Kemper, I am also utilizing this same new collection based off of this incredible 65 Princeton reverb lacquered tweed. You'll notice here I have this capture. The way I implement this high and low shelf trick on Kemper is by bringing a studio equalizer block in. You'll notice here that we have low cuts and we have high cuts. I'm going to just get rid of those for now. Sometimes I like to have those on. So here we go. Basically no EQ, but you'll notice here that there is a low gain and low frequency and a high gain and high frequency. And what these are going to be these shelf EQs. So again, I'm trying to get in here somewhere around 650-ish on both. It doesn't have to be exact. If we're within 1 or 2 hertz, it's fine. And again, watch what I can do with the low gain. I can add some fullness. I could take some fullness away. Fill things out a bit. Or I can come up to the highs, add some sparkle. Or dull it up a bit. In a very quick, intuitive fashion, and that is the beauty of this type of EQ and these controls. So for this, on a telly, maybe I come in and do something like this. Slap a little delay on that. And just like that, we dial in just a gorgeous tone that's going to work with our monitoring system and the particular guitar we're playing at that moment. And finally, here we are over on the Quad Cortex, and I'm utilizing a similar set of captures from that same beautiful Fender Princeton amp. This is called my Princess Rex preset neural captures. So these are all neural captures based off of this amp. Multi-scene. Really beautiful tones there. We'll just come to scene D here, and I'll show you how I would implement this high and low shelf, which I work into all of my presets. And I'm basically going to use the parametric 3 EQ. So if you notice here on band 1, I set it to low shelf, which then I can control this shelf. And on band 3, I'm going to set to the high shelf. So I can do something similar here. So again, I like to set these both in and around that 650-ish range. You can also come down here and just type that exact thing in if you want to be very specific about it. So basically here, if I take this down to, let's say, 1.5 there, and we'll lower the low shelf by like maybe 1.5 as well. Hear how we tighten up the bottom end. Add a little bit more sparkle. Maybe that's what you want. Maybe it's not what you want. Maybe you're on the bridge pickup on a telly, which can get kind of strident, right? So maybe what we actually do is we bring down that high shelf and we bring up that low shelf a little bit. You can kind of hear it just fills in that bottom a bit, takes some of maybe that little bit of harshness out of there. We don't want to go that much. Gives us a very fast, intuitive way to be able to control our tone though. And again, we have to be careful we don't go too much. The beautiful thing is we could use things like scenes or snapshots or different presets to store these and have them so we could switch between guitars. Like I said, maybe we're using a telly that's going to be very bright and cutting, but another song we're using a Gibson 335 or a Gibson Les Paul, it's going to be a little warmer. And we could make these little tiny on-the-fly adjustments with our high and low shelf EQ, save them as presets, and be able to switch effortlessly between them. So that is a really great tip regardless of what modeler or profiler you're using. All right, there you have it. What do you guys think? I know for those who followed my channel, you'll be very familiar with my use of the high and low shelf EQ, but I wanted to talk about it in a more broad fashion today across platforms. I know a lot of Helix users will see me use that in the Helix, and maybe other platform users haven't seen me really talk about this. So I wanted to put it out there kind of on a cross-platform basis, and I really hope that it's a trick that can help you to dial in your tones a lot more efficiently and get you making music, which is really what this is all about. So thanks so much for sharing your time with me. Please like the video, share it with anybody you think would get some use or enjoyment out of watching it. Also, please subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell notification to get notified when I put new content. I'm going to leave you today with a demo video of one of my latest ToneX tone collections that are available. These same tones will be available for Kemper and Quad Cortex also, and a Helix preset that's very similar to this. Thanks again for tuning in and sharing your time with me. Enjoy the music on the way out. We'll talk very soon. Ciao for now.